The first thing you should always do when you're trying to solve rational expressions, by the way, these are all rational equation, I'm sorry, these are all rational expressions here because they're basically fractions with x in them. That's what a rational expression is, it's a ratio. So to solve this, what we can do is make all of them not fractions anymore. And the easiest way to do that is to multiply both sides by anything that is in the denominator. Okay, so first thing I'm going to multiply by is this 6x squared on both sides. Okay, because when you do that on the left, you will notice cancel, cancel, and then you're left with the 1. Okay, here, if you multiply this over here, you're going to have 6x squared times 1 over 2x. And then I'm going to distribute, I'll use a different color, distribute to this one here, and it's going to be 7 over 6x squared times 6x squared. Now, if you notice, everything goes away in the denominator. That's going to cancel. And then over here, x over x cancels this x. 6 over 2 is 3. So now you're left with 1 equals 3x plus 7. Okay? If you notice, the main thing was getting rid of the denominators, because once you do that, then it becomes that green equation, which you've been doing, since middle school. Okay? So going back to what we've said pretty much every single unit is, this is all the stuff you've done before, only it's an extra layer. Basically, the extra layer is this thing right here and this thing of multiplying by the denominators, and then the rest of it's just solving like you've been solving pretty much your entire math career. Okay, so we're going to subtract 7 from both sides, so you get negative 6 equals 3x. Divide both sides by 3, x equals negative 2. One thing you do need to check, though, is making sure that this negative 2 does not cause a division by 0. It doesn't, because you can put a negative 2 in here, here, and here, and you would not have a division by 0. So that is our answer for that. Main thing you want to do, get rid of the fractions, because as soon as you do that, then it's middle school all over again. Okay, the middle school equations. So you want to get to that point. If you notice, we have a bunch of stuff in the denominators there. Before you start multiplying things out, though, for this one, because it's not as easy as the last one, you're better off factoring everything first. So if you notice this thing right here, let me highlight it. This right here, all factors, because you can take a v out. Same with this one right here. So that's actually what I'm going to do first, is I'm going to factor everything. Divided by, I'm going to take a v out here, so then it's v minus 5 is equal to, I can take a 7 out here, and then pull another v out over here. Now, there's certain values that we cannot be dividing by in this one. Okay, so v cannot be equal to 0 or 5, because if you did v is equal to 0 or 5, you would be dividing by 0, and that's illegal. You're not allowed to divide by 0. Those are called excluded values, by the way, but let's just keep going with this. All right, so you're going to need to multiply by all of the denominators. In this case, you're going to have to multiply by v and v minus 5, because if you notice, there's a v here, a v here, a v minus 5, and then a v times v minus 5 there. So we want to get rid of all those denominators, so we're going to multiply both sides by that v times v minus 5. Okay, so v times v minus 5 here. Okay, this is going to distribute to each of these. Let's see here. So we're going to distribute this first one here. The v's are going to cancel, so you're just going to be left with v minus 5 times 1. I'm just going to write v minus 5. This one over here, you're just going to be left with 3 times v plus 4, because the denominators are going to cancel there. This one is just 7 times v minus 8. I guess I didn't really need to factor those, because you just have to distribute them back now, but that's okay. All right, from here I'm going to distribute it back. It's kind of a waste of time to do that, but sometimes they cancel out, so you're going to want to factor it if possible. So v minus 5 plus 3v plus 12 is equal to 7v minus 56. Okay, now if you notice that blue step and purple step, that's just, again, middle school math. You've been doing this before, combining like terms. So the rest of it should pretty much be cake at this point. So we have this one, and this one is 4v. This negative 5 and positive 12 is plus 7. We have something like this here. Always move the one that's smaller. So the 4v is smaller than the 7v. So I'm going to subtract 4v from both sides. So you get 3v. Add 5 to both sides, you get 12. Divide by 3, and you end up with v is equal to 4. Okay. Now make sure that it's not one of the excluded values. The excluded values are 0 and 5. So 4 is included as the solution, and that's the answer. Okay. Again, that main step is multiplying by the denominator. The rest of it should be pretty easy. First thing that you're going to want to do on this is multiply by those denominators, both sides. Okay. So in this case, the denominator is n minus 8. So I'm going to multiply that on both sides and then multiply it on both sides over here. Okay, remember you're distributing to each of these things over here. Don't just multiply the first one. Okay, n minus 8 times what I'm highlighting right here, this thing, is just going to cancel the n minus 8s, and you're just going to be left with 1. Minus n minus 8 times negative 1 is just going to be n minus 8. It is important to make sure it's in parentheses. If you want, you can just make this a plus negative, and it makes it a little bit easier. So it's just going to be like a negative 1 times n minus 8. The right side of the equation, these are going to cancel. So you're left with just 7. And then if you notice right away, this is just, again, middle school math. Distribute the negative 1 to each of these. So you're going to have 1 minus n plus 8 equals 7. So we have 9 on this side. I'm going to add n to the other side and subtract 7. So you should be left with 2. So I kind of skipped some steps there. So I added 9 to both sides, or n to both sides, I'm sorry, not 9. Subtracted 7. So now if you do that, cancel, cancel. 8 minus 7 is 1, so it's going to be 1 plus 1 is 2. This cancels, and you're left with just n. So you're going to put something like that. Quadratic stuff. Oh, wait, real quick, I forgot that the excluded value for this is 8. You can't, n can't be equal to 8 because you'd be dividing by 0, but it doesn't matter. So it is still good to look at that, though. I just knew that it wasn't part of the answer. Okay, this one, it's right away you can look at it and say, okay, r cannot be equal to 2 because then you'd be dividing by 0. But there might be something else in here as well because there's 2 solutions where this is equal to 0 because it's quadratic. So long story short, what you're going to need to do here is factor everything first before trying to solve. So 1 over r minus 2 plus 1 over that whole thing there is going to factor to, I think, negative 5 and negative 2. So r minus 5 and r minus 2 is equal to 6 over r minus 2. Okay, now that it's like this, you can see that r can also not equal 5. Because if it did, you'd be dividing by 0 in part of the equation, and you're not allowed to do that. The rules are still the same, though. You have to multiply both sides by the denominators. So there's 2 denominators this time, r minus 2 and the r minus 5. So those are the 2 denominator factors that you're going to want to multiply by. You have to multiply both sides by them. Okay, so I'm going to multiply here, you get r minus 5. You multiply here, you get 1. On this side, you end up with canceling here, and you end up with 6r minus 30. Okay, now if you notice again, from here, it's all middle school. Okay, but that first step that we had to do was obviously all new stuff. It's kind of complicated. This other part you should be able to do in your sleep. So this is going to be 5r, add 30 to both sides, 26. r is equal to 26 over 5. Okay, we have 2 different denominators there. Even though there's no quadratic in this, it ends up showing up anyway, you'll see. So multiply both sides by both of the denominators. Okay, cancel, cancel. So you're left with 3a plus 9 here. Here, if you multiply this out, you're going to get a minus 2 times a plus 2 because the a plus 3s are going to cancel. You multiply it over here by the negative 1, you're going to have negative a plus 2 times a plus 3. And here's where well, I guess this isn't really middle school. This is more high school level because it's going to be quadratic. So you're going to have a squared minus 4 minus a squared plus 5a plus 6, if you expand that out. Uh, 3a plus 9. Simplify everything. So a squared minus a squared is going to cancel. We're going to distribute this negative here. So then you're going to have negative 5a minus 10 is equal to 3a plus 9. Add the 5a to both sides. You get 8a, subtract the 9, you get negative 19. Negative 19 over 8.